Now, you're probably wondering, why are we completing the square? Because, why not? Why not complete the square? All right, completed square method is used to solve quadratic equations by changing the form of the equation so that the left side is a perfect square trinomial, is what we're trying to create. The reason why we want a perfect square trinomial is because it allows for us to rewrite it in the form of. So the goal of perfect square trinomial is that we can rewrite it as, I guess I'll write it as that, a minus b squared, okay? We want to be able to write it simply as that, okay? And in order to do that, or write it as a plus b squared, okay? And that's so that it helps us get through solving things a little bit faster, especially when the numbers are smaller, okay? So up first, how do you do this? Well, you first are going to transform the equation so that the constant term c is alone on the right side. So in order to do that, we're going to either add or subtract our c away. So we either going to add or subtract c away, our c term. Do you guys remember this guy? Ax squared plus ax squared plus bx plus c? Yeah, okay? So the first thing you're going to do is add or subtract your c term away, okay? If your a, the leading coefficient of the x squared term is not equal to 1, we're going to divide both sides by a, okay? So basically, all it says, you're going to divide by your coefficient a. You're going to divide everything by a. Next, you're going to add the square. This is the part that I hate saying. I call this our magic number. Next, we're going to find our magic number. To find your magic number, you're going to take your b divided by 2 and 2 times a. So if you had to divide by a, then there's a value. If you don't have to divide by a, that means it's just 1. And if you want to write 1 because it makes your heart happy, go for it. And then you're going to square it. This is the number that you can add to both sides. And because you add this to both sides, what that allows you to do is now you can actually factor your right side, your left side. Because again, the whole goal is to get it down to a simple binomial. And then you're going to take the square root of both sides. So when you take the square root of both sides, you then can keep solving from there. But we're going to look at it now. So let's just look at a fully done example, and then we're going to do an example together, okay? So looking from start to finish at an example. So notice here we start off with x squared minus 4x minus 6. The first thing we're going to do is move our c. So our c is negative 6. So to move it, we're going to make it a positive 6. Does that make sense? All right. Next, we then are going to ask ourselves, for our step 1 here, do I need to divide anything by 1? No, because that's pointless, right? There's no number here other than Casper the Friendly One, so we're good to go on. So our new step 2 is going to be finding our magic number. To find your magic number, you're going to take your b term, divide it by 2, and you square it. So negative 4 divided by 2 squared gives me negative 2 squared, which equals 4. It's your magic number because this is the number that you're going to add to the left side and to the right side. By adding it to the left side, you just now created a perfect square trinomial. A perfect square trinomial means that the same number that you would add together to get your middle term is the same number that you would multiply times itself to get your end term, which is going to always be this guy. That's why it's a magic number, negative 2. So let's double check that. Negative 2 plus negative 2. Does that equal negative 4? Yes. Negative 2 times negative 2. Does that equal positive 4? Yes. So because that is true, we completed the square. So when we factor it, it just becomes x minus 2 squared. And now you're in a position that you can solve this without the quadratic formula, without a calculator, because all you're doing is using inverse operations to get x by itself. So the first thing you would do here is take the square root. That's because when you take the square root, it cancels out. So we're going to take the square root, and what we do to one side, we do to the other. And we're left with now, you're gone. X minus 2 equals the square root of 10. When you take the square root of a number, technically it could be positive or negative. So that's why we write it as plus or minus the square root of 10. The next thing you have left to do is to get x by itself. To get x by itself, we're going to just add 2 to both sides. Okay? So then we're left with x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 10. And that is your exact answer, okay? Even on your homework assignment, it has a plus or minus button that you can type in, okay? There is a plus or minus button that you are able to utilize. All right, are we ready to do one together? Wait, it wasn't supposed to show you all of it. Ah! How do I hide it? Oh my God. Don't worry, I'm not a quitter. We're going to beat this problem. You see nothing now. You see? Uh-huh. No, y'all were doubting me for a moment. Don't worry. All right. So y'all saw nothing. I don't know what you were talking about here. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is move our C. And our C is currently what? -7. So in order to move it, I'm going to have to do what? Add 7. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. So we're left with x squared plus 6x equals 7. Okay. Step 1 is done. Step 2 is to find our magic number. So to find our magic number, we're going to take our B term, which is 6, and we're going to divide it in half and square it. So 6 divided by 2 squared equals 3 squared, which equals 9. 9 is what we're going to add to both sides of our equation. Okay, so we're going to add 9. So it gives us x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 7 plus 9. Because it's an equation, what you do to one side, you have to do the other in order for it to stay balanced, correct? All right, so now you're asking yourself, what number times itself gives me 9, but also when you add it to itself gives me 6? My magic number. What was my magic number? 3. So we end up with x plus 3 squared is what this factors out to become. And we get 7 plus 9 is, what's 7 plus 9? 16. So to solve, all we have left to do is x plus 3 squared equals 16. And how do we solve this? Inverse operations. What's our first inverse operation? It's going to be square root because we have to get rid of the square. So what I do to one side, I'm going to do to the other. It cancels out our square, and we're just left with x plus 3 equals plus or minus 4 because the square root of 16 is 4. And what's the last thing I need to do to get x by itself? Subtract 3. So we're left with x equals -3 plus or minus 4. When you have the plus or minus, what that means is that you have two things that you can evaluate. Because these are whole numbers, integers, because these are integers and not a root, I can actually evaluate this. So we have -3 plus 4, and we have -3 minus 4. So our two possible solutions are, what's -3 plus 4? 1. And what's -3 minus 4? -7. So our two answers are 1 and -7. And that's how you complete the square. Okay, so completing the square, it's something you have to do in order to catch on. You can't just look at it, I feel. No matter how many times you look at it, you have to go through the steps yourself in order for you to see, oh, it's not that bad. Okay, now I did this problem on purpose as a easy completing the square, because if we also remember simple factoring, in the beginning, all we're asking ourselves is what multiplies to give me -7, but adds to give me 6. Y'all remember doing that? What multiplies to give me -7, but adds to give me 6? That would be a 7 and a -1, right? So my factors would have been x plus 7 and x minus 1 equal to 0. And my answer still would be what? 1 and -7. Okay? So it's not a substitute for something you already know how to do. Does that make sense? So if there's already a way of solving this that you know how to do, I'm not substituting that in. I'm just adding on to, hey, is there another method? Now, if you can't do that, then this is the other way. But don't forget mental factoring. Okay? I don't want you to be like, oh, we never learned that. Because if I was your teacher, it's a lie. We did. All right. So how does completing the square tie to a circle? Okay. So how does completing the square? So here it says find the center and radius of a circle given by x squared plus 4x plus y squared minus 6y. Okay. You probably were like, where does this come from? And why do I got to do this? Well, that's because in order to find the answers here, we have to do completing the square not once, but twice. Okay. And that's because we have to get our general form of a circle. And our general form is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals our r squared, right? So we have to take this and put it into that form, which is why we had to go over completing the square. Okay, so we're going to write this a little differently. So we end up with x squared plus 4x plus blank plus y squared minus 6y plus blank equals 5. So we need to find our magic number, right? To find our magic numbers, we're taking the b and we do what with the b? We divide it and we square it. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. So I added 4 on this side. So guess what I have to do on this side with the 5? Also add 4. And we're going to do it again here. So we have -6. So we have -6 divided by 2 squared. What is -6 divided by 2 squared? It'll be +9. A negative times a negative is a positive. I added 9 to the left side of my equation. So guess what I have to do to the right side? Add 9. And now I'm going to write these as their perfect square. So my perfect square is what number multiplies to give me 4, but adds to give me 4? Well, that would be a +2. Do we see that? Okay. And then next we have what number multiplies to give me 9, but adds to give me a -6? That would be a -3. 5 plus 4 plus 9 equals 18. So this is the equation of my circle. That is not a y. That's a y. That's a y. And so therefore, where is my center? What's my h and my k? The other way? -2 and +3. And then my radius would equal the square root of 18. Okay? The square root of 18 breaks down. You can take, it becomes 2 and 9. You can't take the square root of 2, but can you take the square root of 9? Yes. So my radius is 3 square root of 2, and that would be my exact radius. So we found our center, we found our equation, and it all came from us being able to do what? Complete the square. Okay? All right. How do we feel about completing the square and tying it back to a circle?